Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Let's Be Real Here podcast. I am your host, Rory Wicks, and today's topic is JK Rowling's. It's not political, but I need to do it. She's saying dangerous things, and I honestly need to talk about it. So let's get started. So I want to try something new. Again, I know. I'm going to keep talking about new ideas I have until one or all of them catch on. So just be ready for that. But right now I'm calling these kind of like Let's Be Real requests. And I'll think of a better name eventually. But what they are is requests from you guys, the listeners, to send me topics about stuff that you care about. Like this topic, for me, it's something that I care deeply about. I think more people need to pay attention to. So I want to do the same thing for you guys. You guys send me something that you care deeply about that you feel like maybe isn't being talked about enough. And I'll dig in and I'll talk about it. I may not agree with your side of the situation, but I'll lay it out there and I'll get it talked about. Like, for example, the other day, my fiance and I were talking about Native Americans and a situation that they're going through right now. And maybe that's something that my fiance will suggest for me to dig into a little bit more because it was something that I was unaware of. But as always, please like, subscribe, follow wherever you're listening, be it on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, or on my website. And don't forget to throw a like on Facebook at facebook.com/Let's Be Real Here podcast. And on Twitter at BeRealHerePod, or for my personal Twitter at AGenderBlogger. But today, we're talking about JK Rowling's. And unless you're living under a rock, I'm sure you know who she is. Or at least you've heard of Harry Potter. Seeing as the only character more well-known than Harry Potter is, well, Jesus Christ. And I would say he's pretty popular. Harry Potter revolutionized children's books, arguably saving that industry. It changed and shaped a generation of kids, giving them something new to dream about. They have theme parks and movies on movies, and soon they're getting a TV show and tons of video games. Harry Potter was magic. The Harry Potter movies started a new trend of splitting books into multiple movies, giving us those awful Hobbit movies, more Twilight movies, and essentially killed the Divergent series. Harry Potter started the trend that led to nerd culture and fandom becoming mainstream. It changed the world. And because of that, JK Rowling's influence is massive. For those of you that don't know, maybe because you aren't big Harry Potter fans or you don't spend 100 hours on Twitter like I do, but a little history for you, JK Rowling's is a TERF. And what a TERF is a trans-exclusionary radical feminist. Basically, J.K. Rowling is a feminist for any woman who isn't trans. In fact, she excludes trans women from this to such an extreme level that she's actually saying dangerous things about trans women. It all started when Joanne tweeted out an article called Opinion, Creating a More Equal Post-COVID-19 World for People Who Menstruate. And she had made some sarcastic comment about it, implying that only women menstruate. And there was immediate blowback, especially from the trans community, because as we all know, trans men, gender nonconforming people, and non-binary people, they can all menstruate too. So Rowling obviously had issues with the title of the article since it said people, not women. She responded to the backlash by leaning into this turfy behavior, saying, and I quote, "If sex isn't real, there's no same-sex attraction. If sex isn't real, the lived reality of women globally is erased. I know and love trans people, but erasing the concept of sex removes the ability of many to meaningfully discuss their lives. It isn't hate to speak the truth," end quote. Additionally, she continues and says, I quote again, "The idea that women like me, who've been empathetic to trans people for decades, feeling kinship because they're vulnerable in the same way as women, i.e. to male violence, hate trans people because they think sex is real and has lived consequences, is a nonsense," end quote. She claims here that she feels empathy for them, but then goes on to say that trans women also feeling similar violence, ostracization, etc. is nonsense. That's not empathy. Real empathy comes when you step up to learn, to educate yourself about the violence, the fear, the hate that they feel, and you turn it into an understanding that you express with your words and actions. What she's doing here is confusing pity for empathy. In a 2018 statement, the American Medical Association wrote that the organization opposes efforts to deny an individual's right to determine their stated sex marker or gender identity. Board member William E. Coble said, "Sex and gender are more complex than previously assumed. It is essential to acknowledge that an individual's gender identity may not align with the sex assigned to them at birth. A narrow limit on the definition of sex would have public health consequences for the transgender population, and individuals born with differences in sexual differentiation, also known as intersex traits." According to McBride, Rawlings and others' ideas disingenuously paint transgender women as caricatures of women. Just like cisgender women, transgender women express themselves with various gender expressions. Some are more feminine, some are less feminine, McBride added. McBride said that this can result in reinforcing prejudices that lead to other forms of discrimination many transgender men and women can experience, such as in housing or employment. Discrimination can also manifest itself into physical violence, which disproportionately affects the trans community, especially transgender women of color. McBride said, again, and I quote, "When a person is living at the intersection of transphobia, racism, and misogyny, the consequences can be deadly," end quote. Like Donald J. Trump, JK Rowling supports the idea that sex is strictly male or female, man or woman, excluding transgender people and arguably intersex people as well. In December, Rowling tweeted out support for Maya Forrester, a researcher who lost her job at a think tank for stating that people cannot change their biological sex. Now, I think this is important because Maya really only had clout and influence in Europe. When JK got involved, it brought it to the world stage. It took her up a notch, essentially handing her a larger platform to spread her hate. This isn't really the first time that we've heard about Joanne's turfy behavior. This has been growing and boiling up over years. There have been hints in her behavior and the things that she said throughout the years, but until this most recent set of tweets and her essay that she wrote, there was really no official confirmation, no concrete evidence that she was a TERF. But now we know. She said in her essay, and I quote, "I'm concerned about the huge explosion in women wishing to transition and also about the increasing numbers who seem to be detransitioning," end quote. First part is true. There are more trans men in the world now, likely because they know it's an option. That the feelings they have aren't just them being a tomboy, aren't just a lesbian, but that they are, in fact, a man. And as for the detransitioning, it's just flatly not true. 0.3% of trans people who get any kind of gender-affirming surgery seek treatment to detransition. So I really don't see any room for concern. Rowling goes on to say, and I quote, "The argument of many current trans activists is that if you don't let a gender-dysphoric teenager transition, they will kill themselves," end quote. Well, transgender young people often present with things like severe depression, anxiety, and even suicidal ideation related to their gender dysphoria. If left untreated, for a lot of trans people, that can lead to suicide. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, more than half of transgender male teens who participated in the survey reported attempting suicide in their lifetime, while 29.9% of transgender female teens said that they attempted suicide. Among non-binary youth, 41.8% of respondents stated that they had attempted suicide at some point in their lives. That is a lot of teens. So while she's concerned for the 0.3% that detransition, I'm concerned for the much higher percentage of trans people who try to kill themselves because of hateful rhetoric that the glorious JK Rowling likes to spew on her Twitter. Joanne just doesn't understand what being trans is. It shows when she says things like, "If I'd been born 30 years later, I too might have tried to transition. The allure of escaping womanhood would have been huge." That's not what it's about, Joanne. A trans man isn't trying to escape womanhood. In fact, I know someone right now that's scared to transition because of how it might look. because they're an active feminist, and that some of them feel like they might be traitors to their assigned sex. That when there's so much work to do for women still, that transitioning to a man doesn't seem fair. So the escape of womanhood isn't what they're trying to do. They're not cowards. They're trying to feel comfortable with who they are and how they feel. They're trying to feel comfortable in their own skin. Joanne goes on and cites statistics that aren't real, stating between 60 and 90% of gender dysphoric teens will grow out of their dysphoria. Psychiatric advisor calls these statistics misleading. They said the study design creates undue panic over the supposed instability of transgender identification in young children. The biggest issue here is that she knows the risks to the trans community and even cites some in her essay, but then follows it up by saying, and I quote, "When you throw open the doors of bathrooms and changing rooms to any man who believes or feels he's a woman, then you open the door to any and all men who wish to come inside. That is the simple truth," end quote. But it's not. This general statement implies that trans women are uniquely predators, or that they could be. And that's flatly not true. Also, who fucking cares? People use the bathroom to use the bathroom, okay? So why don't we let the trans women pee in peace without every other woman in the bathroom thinking they might attack them? And the real simple truth is, you're setting up for harm to be done to the trans women that you think you're, misguidedly protecting? Well, trans activists aren't fighting for whatever it is that JK thinks we're fighting for. And that kind of shit doesn't happen. It's like the attack helicopter joke. She's lessening how we feel by saying that anybody would just use it as an excuse to be a predator. They're a predator no matter what, and they're going to use any excuse to do it. So saying damning things like this, implying that any man will just say they're a woman, is casting a shadow on trans women that they've been fighting for years to overcome, and she's bringing it back to the surface out of unfound fear. I don't know why I have to say this, but I guess reminder, trans women aren't predators. Trans people aren't predators. Non-binary people are not predators. But this continuous talk about how predators may be using being trans as an excuse to be a predator is wrong. And you know what? Maybe some people will. But that person isn't a reflection of the trans community, just like a dog that bites or kills someone isn't a reflection of all dogs. We can't stop progression out of fear. If we live our lives like that, we'll never grow. Trans people and non-binary people will continue to live in fear because they are being looked at as predators. And I just won't accept that. This brings me to the hardest part here. I love Harry Potter. Not like, I love it, it's great. Like, I've read the series over 50 times. I practically worshipped Harry Potter. There's a period of my life, a long period, where I spent months at a time grounded and wasn't allowed to watch TV or play video games. So all I did was read. And the only books I really had were the Harry Potter books, the Lord of the Rings books, and maybe a handful of others. I would stay up like way past when I was supposed to go to sleep, and I'd be reading them. I remember when Order of the Phoenix came out, I read the whole book in 8 hours straight because I was so excited to read it. I remember going to the midnight release with my dad for Goblet of Fire. I grew up with these books. Harry Potter was a similar age to me while I was reading them, so there was this connection, unlike anything that I'd ever felt in my life, and really still. I used to daydream about going to Hogwarts to escape everything. My first real celebrity crush was on Emma Watson. I remember my grandma used to take me to see all the movies when I was younger, even though she didn't care about the series at all. I felt the same feelings that Ron and Harry and Hermione were feeling in the books. I was feeling those same things in my life. They helped me understand things that nobody was talking to me about. It's like I didn't just grow up with the books in my life. It was like I grew up with these books as part of my life. They meant that much to me. They still do. I know that I'm a Hufflepuff. And according to Pottermore, my Patronus is a bloodhound, though if it was a dog, it would be a pit bull or a greyhound pit bull. But me and my friends, we know my Patronus is a rhino. My wand is cherry wood with a dragon heartstring core, 9.5 inches long. Long before Pottermore, there was the old HarryPotter.com website, and I was very active on that site. I used to duel and roleplay as a teacher or student at Hogwarts on that site. It was my first real introduction to RP, and to this day, RPing is one of my biggest hobbies. I'm an officer for a club that is role-playing games. I still play D&D. For the longest time of my life, I was going to design a whole tattoo sleeve around Harry Potter. I don't have any Harry Potter tattoos now, and I don't know if I'm going to get any anymore. And I have yet to meet someone that knows as much about me as the series, though the more I think about it, there's a couple of my friends that could probably give me a run for my money. The point is, Harry Potter was my fandom. It was the thing I was obsessed with for years of my life, really for most of my life at this point. For me, like, as an agender, as a non-binary person, when I see JK Rowling saying all these hateful things and being so adamant about it now, leaning so hard into this turfy behavior that's honestly getting worse by the day, I don't know what to do. This talk and her behavior and the fact that she pours so much of her money into charities, and I don't know how many of those charities might be trans exclusionary, but it makes it hard for me to want to support her product. How can someone who created such a beautiful, flawed, yes, but beautiful world that my fucked up little brain latched onto and helped me get through some of the darkest times of my life be so hateful and so blind to the damage that she's doing? It breaks my heart. And I want to so badly see all the new movies that are coming out and to play this new game. I mean, God, this new game is killing me. Hogwarts Legacy. I still haven't watched the trailer because I've practically been waiting my whole life for a game like this. An open world RPG where I get to create the wizard. That's my dream game. But now I have to sit and I have to think about how much do I really love it? Is it worth supporting someone who is actively undermining the trans community? And yes, I know that at the end of the day, she isn't making much money off of my one purchase. But in today's video game world, there's going to be more things to buy, more DLC, merch, everything. And there is this support that you give just by playing the game. And with me trying to carve my place in the world as a political commentator or podcaster or whatever, I feel like it matters even more for me now because I should practice what I preach. I just have this like spiral of feelings, and the visual image that comes to mind is if you've seen the movie Inside Out, this will make sense to you. And if not, you should go watch it because it's cute. But I feel like this is my Harry Potter personality island crumbling. That this part of me that has defined so much of who I am is getting crushed, and not by my choice. And I've explored other options like Harry Potter fanfic, and it's just not for me. And that's okay. I envy those people that can find solace in fan fiction. I just can't. It's not the same to me, at least not for Harry Potter. And I've talked to my friends and my fiance about it. I've thought about buying the game and then donating double the price to a charity that helps trans women specifically. But for me, it comes down to if you do it, you're playing the game and you're still supporting her and whatever she's putting out in the world. And I struggle with that. I mean, what horrible thing might be in that game? I can't even say that you wouldn't taint the Harry Potter world with it because she would. Her new book, under her pen name Robert whatever the fuck, has a man that kills people, but he dresses as a woman and fakes being Muslim. So not only is there transphobia, but there's Islamophobia, and she's sending this around like it's not an issue. How can we not see this as intentional? She cites shit like this bathroom bullshit in her malicious essay and then writes a character that is exactly the kind of predator she claims is the problem. That's not an accident. She's going to use that to push her turfy movement. So giving her money, even from Harry Potter, is just pushing her ability to spread more hate and write more transphobic books. And yes, I'm promoting canceling JK Rowling, but I hate that term cancel culture because there's this negative connotation along with it, like people who get canceled didn't deserve it. Well, she does. And here's the thing. It's not like this is new. Brutus canceled Caesar with knives to the back. People boycott businesses all the time. This has always happened. It's just in today's world of social media, everything is under a microscope. So if you're a celebrity, you will always be at risk if you use your platform to spread your own ideology, because some people are going to disagree with you. I don't always agree with, what people are trying to cancel celebrities over. People try to do it over the stupidest shit. But it's not like politicians aren't also doing this as a negative on the progressive movement when they also go out and do it themselves. Look at Trump with Goodyear, CNN, Harley Davidson, and the social media itself. Like, Trump is the fucking king of cancel, so whatever. But just like anything else, if it can be politicized, it will. And it's really just a fight against political correctness because old white people are scared of losing their old white way. The generation that told us to grow up has forgotten to do it themselves. So while we try to clean up their mess, they all yell and scream and shit all over everything because change is bad and it's hard and they don't want to do it because it's stupid. Well, too bad, we're changing and it's time for you to grow up. And when it comes to Joanne, people are starting to agree. People that work for the publishing company that publishes all her books are refusing to work on her new books because of what she's saying. An Australian bookstore pulled all of her books off the shelves. Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, the big three from all the movies are standing out against her. Unfortunately, the guy who plays Hagrid spoke out in support of JK Rowling, and that makes me sad because I love Hagrid. But at the end of the day, someone was going to support her, so I guess at least it wasn't one of the trio. Eddie Redmayne, who plays Newt in the Fantastic Beasts movies, spoke out against her. There is a school in England I was reading about that was going to name a new house after her. Now they're not going to. This isn't going away anytime soon, and she's leaned into it so hard that now she's just blaming cancel culture, not the fact that she's the one saying all this abusive shit. It's sad. It's heartbreaking. And there is so much that's coming out in the Harry Potter world that I could be looking forward to. With the new video game, there's the Dumble TV show, another Fantastic Beasts movies that will likely bomb. On that note, and probably because I just watched a video about this the other day, but what the fuck happened with Crimes of Grindelwald? The first Fantastic Beasts movie was fun. Newt was great, and the movie, made sense. This one was just all over the fucking place. I wasn't even sure why Newt was there. And to make matters worse, neither was Newt. You fucked up your own timeline trying to be cute by adding McGonagall in the movie, but she wouldn't have been alive yet, so that doesn't make any sense. And the whole plotline with the unbreakable vow, if the actual Clarence died by drowning on the boat that may or may not have been the Titanic, wouldn't that void the unbreakable vow since he can't kill the right kid? So Clarence is just some random kid who happened to be in the same clothes on the same boat at the same time and looked exactly the same. Was she drunk when she wrote this movie? Because it's fucking bonkers, and not in a good way. Okay, I think I'm done. Nagini? Really? God, there's so much wrong with that whole plot line, I don't even know where to begin. But I'll just say this. Why the fuck was her name Nagini? Okay, no, I'm done. I think it's this new book that might be the straw that broke the camel's back for her, because I can't willingly support someone who is making up a false narrative and then writing her own propaganda-like material to try and push an anti-trans agenda. But even after talking about it, it's so hard. I go back and forth. I'll likely not be supporting any product of hers anytime soon, but that doesn't mean I won't ingest the material eventually. It's so ingrained in our society now, it's hard not to see it. But one way or the other, the trans community will always take priority for me. But for now, I guess I'll do what I can buying products of hers secondhand, supporting other queer voices in the community, and maybe I'll take a stab at doing Harry Potter pod fiction for people. I wanted to try narrating books anyway, so maybe that'll be a good starting point for me. The future of Harry Potter is bleak right now. And as terrible as JK Rowling has been making it for us, we can't let her take away all the good the series did for us. So we have to fight back and keep the world that she created. No, the world that we perfected. That's all for today. Remember, like, follow, and subscribe, and most importantly, share. Word of mouth is the best marketing for me, so if you like what you heard, please help me get my name out there and share this podcast. Thanks, everyone. This is Rory Wicks. Talk to you next time.